They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, They come together for one cause, to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause, to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause, to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause, to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause, to geek out. They are the Council of the Blerds. Blerd powers unite. Engage.
We should be all good. We should be all good right now. Make sure everything is running smoothly. Hold up. Alright, got that. Alright, we good to go?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Alright. What's going on, fellow geeks and blerds? This is your boy Kendrick Grey, the Dreadlock Blerds, and welcome back to another episode of Council of the Blerds. Here, back again. We've been doing pretty good so far. This is what?
Yes.
Week three? Week 3, we've been pretty alright. We've been pretty consistent. This is good. Now hopefully we can keep this going even after the pandemic's over. So, great. Right now I have joining me Enigma's Girl. Say what's up to everybody, and HB Gibson himself.
Hello.
Tiny will be joining us once she finishes making her errand. So once she gets in, she'll join right into the conversation. We had mentioned before that we had talked about talking about video games today for our today's podcast, but something interesting, a little disheartening, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Something happened.
Popped up between last week and this week. Just to give you guys a briefing. I mean, Kim. I mean, you're the one that is close to home too. So I'm gonna let you take it, and you can go right ahead and explain the situation to everyone.
Well, yeah, Kendrick, this is really close to home for me because I work for both Comcast and AMC right now, and I am just a little ticked off in a sense at the situation, not necessarily at what's going down or anything like that. It's what happened, but just to give you guys an overview, AMC, which is the American Multi-Cinema, for you guys that don't know that, they have about 630 theaters in the U.S. right now. And they're operating those, they were operating fully before the pandemic. Once the pandemic hit, this pandemic basically wiped them out. They are now about $4.9 billion in debt. And this is what we heard about 2 weeks ago about what's going on with them. So, backstory, we're starting to hear more and more about what's going on and everything else with them. They were originally rumored to be filing bankruptcy, but we heard from one of the major investors in AMC that that's not the case. That may change down the line, but right now they did a debt sale, which took about $500 million. So that should, and for you guys that don't know, a debt sale is when somebody basically buys a debt of the company for profit. So they're basically gaining all that money in order to pay off that debt. So $500 million is a lot of money for them to be buying off. Right now, their stocks have gone back up. And this is because, not only because of that $500 million, debt sale, but also AMC is really optimistic about what's going to happen in June. They think with the president right now going over saying that we need to be open by June, this needs to happen by June, they're very optimistic and want to be open in June to be ready for the blockbuster season in the summertime. Hopefully this pandemic will wean off by then, but they're definitely banking on that information. Now, that's AMC. NBC, on the other hand, is on a totally different wavelength at this point. NBC is a Comcast company. They are basically a news company, entertainment. They own entertainment networks. They own theme parks. They own everything. Right now, they have taken a hit as well. Not as much as AMC has, in a sense. The film industry as a whole has taken about a $1.4 billion hit in a whole. Since the pandemic, so I'm trying not to say the actual word, since the pandemic has started, their profits, Comcast profits dropped about 40%. And that has a couple of reasons. Mainly because they own Universal Studios, both parks. So they lost a lot of their revenue right there. As people are not visiting their hotels, their parks, everything. A lot of their revenue has dropped from there. Also, they can't do a lot of advertising for their new movies because we really don't know when their next blockbuster is going to be set to come out. We don't have any dates. Nothing is final. So in the interim, they decided, hey, let's just release some of our movies on VOD, which is video on demand. In March, they put up The Invisible Man, The Hunt, Emma, and a movie called Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. That's a mouthful within itself. For $20 rentals for 48 hours. And those are your platforms like Amazon, Apple, things of that nature. Those are going to be on those major streaming websites. But those movies didn't bother anybody. Those weren't the bother. The movie that came out that bothered the life out of everyone was one of the most unexpected movies for them to be bothered by, and that was Trolls, the second Trolls movie.
Trolls World Tour.
Trolls World Tour, which was supposed to be released in theaters on April 10th, but was released online on April 10th. And has racked up $100 million in digital sales.
Whoa!
So here's the problem. AMC is a little pissed. They're stating that Universal did not allow for proper theatrical release, the proper theatrical release window to occur before releasing to VOD. That release window is 90 days, according to their agreement. So they completely said, you know what, I'm going to release this because I need to make money. As a result, AMC banned banned their movies from playing in their theaters.
Full ban, like
Full
no,
ban.
never,
Oh.
never ever.
So Regal also is kind of on the same. Regal's kind of on the same wavelength. I believe the parent company is called Cineworld. Cineworld, the parent company, is on the same length. They're basically saying they're not technically banning. What they're doing is saying if you're going to release that on VOD, we're not going to release that in our theaters.
Cinemark.
Cineworld is the actual name, but the actual name.
Okay.
Cineworld.
Okay. Right.
The issue is that Universal's planning to continue this, so they're planning on continuing this release to film, and release to VOD on the same day platform. And the concern is that this may clash with the companies themselves. And I don't know if many people know how movie theaters make most of their money. It's not off the movies themselves.
It's the concessions.
It's the concessions.
Yeah.
They make money off of the bodies coming in there making the concessions. The only time they make money off of the actual movie is when it's running past the extended lease time.
Right.
So if they put the lease for 44 weeks or whatever the case may be, that lease, they're getting only 20% of that movie to 25% of that movie profit.
Right.
After that, if that movie runs longer than that, then they're probably going to get about half. But most of their money is going to come directly from concessions alone for people walking in there.
Right.
So my question to you guys, do you think AMC was being too optimistic about June's opening date?
I believe so. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe this is just, and this is not with any facts or figures or anything like that. This is really just like the way I see it, the way things are happening, the way things are in the news, and how apprehensive people are, because this COVID-19 is straight up killing people. It has killed like thousands, and people. And you have the people that just want to go back to normalcy, and then you have those people that are like, "Hey, yo, wait a minute, not so fast. People are dying from this."
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that they really need to get control of the situation first before we start talking about opening up any theaters. I want to go back to a movie theater more than anybody, but these things have to be done and has to be planned out. We can't just rush back to the theater like that. AMC, I know AMC, oh my God, I mean, never in a million years did I think that we would see movie theaters closing, bars closing. We have never seen this before. And this has to be handled delicately, and it has to be planned out. We have to get the disease under control before we open up anything. And I know this is business, and I know that there's contracts and everything, but these guys have to see. I mean, it's. I'm not going to bring politics in. Well, let's just say the rich people are not seeing anything beyond their wallets and not seeing people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Get it under control before you start opening up anything.
I agree.
Just to piggyback off of that, many discussions have been had about the new normal, essentially. And just to your point, HB, it's crazy to see a movie theater, especially a movie theater parking lot, empty. The past few times we went to Clifton, because we live within like 15 to 20 minutes of 3 AMC theaters, one in Clifton, one in West Orange, and one in Wayne. To go to movie theaters and see parking lots empty is scary. It's actually really scary, but at the same time, it is what it is, what we're going through right now with this pandemic. Everyone's way of living had to change. And that meant people had to change the way they do business as well. I'm surprised as much as anyone that it was Trolls World Tour, that was the movie that grossed as much money as it did, not premiering in the movie theaters. But at the same time, and this is something I've mentioned to Tani plenty of times, that What happened?
I said, why not? Everyone's kids are home.
Well, we'll get into that particular sense, but as far as we're just talking about in general, like, do you think that people are going to be going back to these theaters, that they're going to be flocking as soon as they open their door? You think people are going to be flocking back in? Because you have to remember, there are billions of dollars in debt, and they're not going to be looking to recover that debt once they open up. And I think they have the assumption that people are going to be running into their theaters once they open these doors. I know some people will, but I won't.
Not necessarily.
It's going to be again. It's going to take a lot to get back to the old normal. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
I'm gonna give it a 40%.
Yeah, like as much as I love going to
a movie fan, 40% is gonna go. 40, maybe less.
A lot of people are going to slowly work their way back to movie theaters. You know, if anything, what this pandemic highlighted is how much cleaner establishments have to be.
Yes.
As many times as we gone to the movie theaters, how many times have we seen popcorn, drinks, a whole bunch of stuff on the floor, seats dirty? They're gonna have to. All businesses, especially movie theaters, are gonna have to step their game up as far as being very clean.
And that's just about the minimum of what you guys see versus what people behind the scenes see.
Right.
So, I mean, definitely, Tani, what do you think? Do you think people are going to be coming back in here, running back? Is she there?
She should be. I don't think she clicked out.
Okay, she probably is. She probably had a. But as far as my perspective, I don't think a lot of people are going to be coming back in there. I think a lot of people are going to be standing. A lot of people are going to be waiting it out, feeling the waters, testing the waters. And I don't think another reason why I don't think people are going to be flocking back is I don't think they're going to be having a lot of blockbusters. They don't have enough time to put blockbusters into the actual theaters. A lot of movie companies don't have enough time to prep this. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to be putting out very good content because they don't have the ability to kind of go, okay, June 15th, this is coming out right now. I'm just putting out a date. I don't even know if that's a Friday or not. But, June 15th, this is going to be, it is a Friday. Go figure. Is it? No, it's a Friday. Wow. That we're going to be putting out, a movie or 2 or 3, and it's going to be, a massive thing. I'm like, I don't think that. I think a lot of it's going to be a lot of, second-rate movies, which you'll still lose money on because you're going to have to pay people to come in there, and you have to pay people to sit there. And I've been in a movie theater before that. If you ever worked in a movie theater, and people that know, you work in a movie theater during the week, that's basically what you're probably going to be walking into. You're probably going to get a surge in the beginning from people just ready to get out and just go flock in there. And then when people actually kind of wean off, you're going to have now people just going every once in a while, every so often. And you're going to get that Monday effect on a Saturday.
Right.
You're going to pay people to be sitting in your building, and you're going to be paying you're going to be running projectors, you're going to be running electricity, you're going to be doing all this. And it's not going to be for a blockbuster. It's going to be for something that's very mediocre and that you're not going to make a lot of money off of.
Right.
They're going to have to, a lot of places are going to wait to do that because they have to do their advertising. They can't do advertising right now.
Yeah.
So, you're not going to put out the next Fast and the Furious movie, and say, okay, I'm going to put it out in June. No, I'm going to drop it in October, November.
Right.
I have enough time to put out ad revenue.
Exactly.
Means not like saying that some people are not going to watch it anyway, but I may not know it's out. So definitely, I don't necessarily think that they're going to be doing that more. But another question I have for you guys, kind of going into that what you were talking about before, do you think that Trolls World Tour movie would have done that well in the theaters?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, we're looking at the current situation of the day. The kids are home. Okay, they're not in schools. They're being homeschooled. I hope they're They're home. So what are the parents going to do? They're going to say, "Oh, okay, Trolls World Tour is brand new." I mean, even if it went straight to DVD, they probably would have checked it out. But we're in a situation where we can't go to the theaters. So, kids movie, kids are home, rent, boom. If anything, COVID-19 helped Trolls World Tour make money. I'm sorry. I hate to say it.
I mean,
Let's talk about this. The first Trolls movie made $153 million domestically and about a little under 350 million worldwide.
Wow.
So, I mean, it almost sounds like they're right on track.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the numbers that they were expecting for this movie.
But would you think that if it came out, if they would have said we need to wait to put this out in June? Tani, do you think that this movie would have done as well as it has done now?
I think so, because even by June, a lot of the country is out of school by then. People would have taken their kids.
But the thing is that we're talking about now in the pandemic. So we're talking about in the pandemic while these theaters are closed with no projected date where we're going to be opening. If we're saying, we're shooting for June, which would have been about their 90 days at this point. We're talking April, June, July. Almost, yeah. So April, May, June. Actually, sorry, I'm missing a whole month. April, May, June. So you're looking at about July for that actual date for that 90 days of roll. I'm like, you're looking at a month of basically no advertisements and this movie rolling out.
What was the word of mouth about the movie?
Probably not.
I'm sorry?
Without any advertising, probably not. Pretty sure they're not as popular as Beyonce, who could just drop an album without advertising.
Yeah.
Make some money. But, I mean, if they knew that, okay, theaters are definitely opening, Trolls is coming out, maybe they wouldn't did as much, not as high as they did, but from what I've seen, I think people would have gone out to the movies to see it.
Okay.
What was the word of mouth about the movie before it even came out? Because there was some people, I mean, there was word that it wasn't, that people were not, that this was not going to really be the big thing.
Well, I think a lot of it came from the fact that a lot of the hype for this right now came from the fact that it had an April release date already.
Okay.
So it was already had advertising and already had everything set up. Just the pandemic happened in between all that.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed people who had movies coming out in March, April, and if they decided to release to VOD, they had it was the same commercial, but then they just changed the ending instead of releasing the theaters, instead of release the VOD.
Yeah,
okay.
Because they
already spent those advertising dollars, so they might as well use them.
Exactly.
Let's think about the movies that came out immediately on VOD as soon as quarantine was put in place. The Invisible Man, The Hunt,
right.
Bloodshot. All those movies that had ample time for advertising for coming out in movie theaters. I'll give kudos to them for being able to transition just like that from being released to movie theaters to being released to VOD. But it's I would say that had Trolls World Tour continue this trajectory of trying to be released within June, I could probably say that it probably wouldn't do as well as it did. The opening weekend would probably be gangbusters, because opening weekends usually are, but after that, things kind of die off after a time. Now, video on demand, now you're leaving the option open to, you already rented it before. Now there's a possibility that if the kids want to watch it again, they didn't get enough time to watching it within 24 hours, rent it again for another $20, or maybe it's going to be even less than that. Then you got to also figure that, usually after a month maybe, prices on renting, like, new movies tends to go down a bit. So that's still a substantial amount of money that the film is making, coupled with how long it's been video on demand, and coupled with the amount of people that are actually watching it. So,
yes,
I would say that I think the film, it probably would have broken even had it come out in the movie theaters during the time we're in right now, but I think video on demand was definitely a saving grace for them, and I really think it's going to be a saving grace for a lot of other film companies within the next going forward. Really, going forward, if you want to think about it.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
Yeah,
we came back just in time.
Issues.
You came just in time.
Yeah.
He just finished his point.
Yeah, we just finished.
He just finished his point.
Mm-hmm.
So
now AMC and Cineworld are not the only theaters that are in.
Well, yeah, we'll get to
Regal.
that in a second. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Well, Regal is owned by Cineworld, so Cineworld is actually a subsidiary of. I'm sorry, Regal's a subsidiary of Cineworld.
So how much I know. All these beautiful theaters, and none of them want Universal Films now.
That's not that they're saying that.
Just hope that you'll open. Just hope that you'll open, guys.
Yeah. So, in this particular case, who do you think is wrong?
I'm just gonna go right off the bat and just say Universal did what they had to do. Everybody's doing what they have to do right now. I mean, let's just be real here. Like, I mean, I don't see AMC trying to ban other movie production companies because they've released their movies on VOD.
Yeah,
I know Universal is a pretty big company. They own a lot of properties. One of them, which is the Fast and Furious franchise, they own them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean that's going to be a real punch in the nads if they continue to go through with that. I have to feel like everyone who's in this position right now has to make a choice where it's going to keep their bills paid. I can understand where AMC is coming from. I can understand their frustration, but at the same time, it's like, if you guys cannot house what we're trying to show, we have to figure out some other way to show what we have. Video on demand is the absolute next step for them to take in order to get their content out there. That's just the way I see it.
Mm-hmm. So what is AMC's real beef? Are they saying it's a breach that Universal they're a breach of contract?
It's more so, they're saying that there's an agreement, and it's not just with AMC, it's with most theaters, that when you put out a movie, they have a 90-day gap before you put it in a VOD. And that's basically bottom line, because what happens is that if you put it on VOD, that keeps people at home.
Right.
So if they're not making their concessions, that they're not making their money off concessions, they're not making money. So if you're going to release on VOD, you might as well just not give it to me at all, because I'm not going to make money off of it. That's their beef. So that's what they're angry about. So like, in their particular sense, I understand where they're coming from, but just not with this. With this particular case, this is out of their hands. It was supposed to be released on the 10th. It's a movie that's supposed to be released. They're not going to pay for re-advertising to put it out in June.
Right.
And especially when they already lost 40% of their earnings.
Right.
By just losing, a major part of their earnings right now, which is basically the theme parks. By losing the access to the theme parks, do you think they're going to just stop? No, they're gonna continue this. So basically, I believe that their beef is more so with the actual policy rather than this. And I think that because Universal has already made a stand basically saying, you know what, going forward, I think we're going to continue to do this. AMC is like, hold on, wait a second. So how am I supposed to make money?
Right. I mean, which is
there
fair.
It is. There it is.
I'm trying to look at this from a business perspective. I mean, unfortunately, a contract is a contract. And when things unprecedented happen, you would hope that your contract covers that. Usually there's an act of God clause.
There it is.
I'm not sure if pandemics fall under acts of God.
Well, but I'm not sure either where this falls, because technically the video is not in hand with AMC, if that makes sense. When I was in theaters, I would say I would get a movie about 3 to 4 days before the actual release, maximum. The movie's not in hand. They contract the movies, they lease the movies from the actual, from these companies.
Right.
So if this company was set to lease this to you and they broke the lease on their end, I mean, at that moment, what's the liability on yours? None, really.
Right.
You didn't lose anything. You didn't gain. Well, you lost, but you didn't gain in this particular sense because you were closed anyway.
Exactly. So that could be Universal's argument. We didn't play our film, so we took other avenues.
Right.
I think it goes back to maybe we should have talked about it. Maybe.
Yeah. It seems like when there is a change in contract, you are to approach the other party when the change needs to be made.
Right.
And that's Cinemark's standpoint on that. Cineworld's, I keep saying Cinemark. Cineworld's standpoint on that. Cineworld is upset with Universal because they didn't have that conversation. They didn't have that dialogue. So they're upset because that dialogue did not happen. They didn't say, hey, you know what, we need to close this out real fast, because you didn't tell us. Because they put out a warning. They're basically saying, they're not banning them. They're just saying that if you do this again, I'm not playing that particular movie. I'm not going to keep that movie. We're not going to lease that from you because it makes no sense for us to do it.
Right.
That's Cineworld's beef as well. It's more so, I need to make the money. I need to know how to make this money, but I need you to communicate to me when you're going to do this and how you're going to do this, because I need to know going forward.
Now, in an instance like that, that's fair. A warning, just makes sense because, listen, we have a contract here. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. This is how this works.
Yeah.
You guys just decided to just release it on video on demand and stuff and we ain't know nothing about it. For all we know, this pandemic could have been over by the beginning of April. Of course, that's not the case, of course, but it could have been. So it's we got to work together here. You want to make money, I want to make money. Let's make this thing happen. But you do this mess again, you're sleeping with the fishes.
But the thing I don't understand is that they released videos that, and I guess most of them were in theaters up until a certain point.
Yeah.
In March. So, at what point did you not see it coming?
And you know what? I think when it comes to an instance like that, because, like I said, I'm running off those movies, The Hunt, Invisible Man, Bloodshot, those movies were either already out or were literally getting ready to come out at that moment, just when the pandemic hit.
Right.
And I would like to believe that a discussion was had between those production companies and the movie theaters, well, listen, we're in a bit of a bind right now, so we're just gonna go ahead and release this on demand, and once this whole thing clears up, we'll be back in business. But again, now we're in May. April's over. We're in we're at the beginning of May now, and the tide hasn't turned yet. So it's just one of those business instances where it's you got to do what's best for your business.
Definitely.
The fact that AMC is on the verge of filing for bankruptcy because nobody's able to come. That sucks.
Again, we're not even going to say that because, again, they're saying that's a rumor. They're saying that they're optimistic. They're saying, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to say, you know what? If you're saying that you sold these assets, you have, sold this debt and you're going to recover, by all means, Godspeed. But I will give you the benefit of the doubt in saying that. I won't say otherwise, if that makes sense.
I would hate for AMC to close. It's one of my favorite movie theaters. I'm an AMC Stubbs member. I'm an AMC A-list member. I like that. I like that little feature. I like it a lot.
It's a very nice little service they have. Yeah. It's a very nice service they have.
So it does help the movie-going experience a great deal.
Yeah.
But like everybody else, it's like a play it by ear type of deal we're going through right now. Unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. We're at a play it by ear type of deal. You know, we don't know when things are going to get better, or if things are going to get worse. We don't know that.
Yeah.
So everyone has to make concessions. They have to reconfigure a lot of their business practices and what their businesses are, and do what's best for them to make money.
Definitely.
You know.
So, do you guys think, other theaters besides, Cineworld, which owns Regal, and AMC, do you think other theaters are having problems with this? Because these are the only main ones we're hearing about. And there are smaller theaters that are out there right now that, we may not have heard of.
I mean, I would like to think that they probably are. Just not as, like you said, not as bad as like Cineworld or AMC, because those are like real big movie theater chains. A lot of the smaller theaters, like, your local movie theaters.
Well, remember, we researched this the other day, and I actually wanted to see, I know AMC is popular where we live in New Jersey. However, it may not be, that might not be the largest. So I researched the theater chain with the most locations in the U.S. is actually Cinemark.
All right.
Wow.
And there is one Cinemark not too far from us in Clifton that Kendrick and I actually said we were going to check out because it looked, even the outside looked a lot nicer than the AMC.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, this could be if they are popular elsewhere in other states, this could be their chance to just buy up.
Right.
All the locations around here.
Right.
I was thinking,
especially if they are already the largest, they probably have the means to do so. If AMC and Cineworld doesn't necessarily act right.
Right.
Which makes sense.
That makes sense. It does.
It does make sense. And they're probably going to end up profiting the most off of this. What do you think about this new thing with drive-in theaters? That they're saying that they're going to they're going to start bringing them back.
This would actually be an opportune time for that to happen.
Absolutely.
And here's why, because people go to the movie theaters all year round. That's just a given. I personally like going to the movie theaters during the summertime because when it's blazing hot outside, the air conditioners are bumping in the movie theaters, and I'm chilling. But
the AC is dynamic, yes.
But drive-in movie theaters allows for, how am I trying to say this? It allows for them to not spend so much money, like the company themselves to spend so much money, but at the same time just make a lot more money than they could possibly imagine, because I don't really know the logistics of drive-in theaters because I never really looked into that, and they haven't really been a thing, for like decades.
Fun.
It's been a really long time since I've been to a drive-in theater. Fun. They probably died out by time Kendrick, you and I were like 12.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But I think there's one in Jersey and a couple around. There's a couple around Jersey. Maybe about 3.
Oh,
so
I happen to have enjoyed Spider-Man: Far From Home with my lady over in Atlanta, and I must say that the drive-in experience is pretty nice.
And considering
I've done it a couple of times as a kid. Don't remember what movies we were seeing, but you just had the huge screen. You had the concessions. I think if you spent a little bit more money, you had the people who would come to you instead of you having to get out your car and go to the concession.
Right.
So my bougie family, we did that. Yeah. And I remember it being fine. I remember it being no more abnormal than going to a theater. It's just different.
And you're with people that you know.
Exactly.
The speaker, that they put the speaker inside your car because there was no Bluetooth back then. So you put this, and also, the speaker inside your car, I think, allows for the sound to sync up better, because Ken was talking about Bluetooth. I was like, yeah, but you could probably with Bluetooth, you could probably do have a major delay. They would probably need to bring those analog speakers or something like that back.
And
the one that I went to, they told you that to turn to a specific channel
on your radio. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, because a lot of them can do that through the radio on the actual dial, like they do with like they used to do back in the day.
Because I was gonna say
the one I went to, they actually gave you a speaker and you put it inside your car.
That's super old. That is super old school. That's the really old school one. That's like, and it's usually a giant speaker usually, but it's like. I thought about it. I thought about driving to a drive-in theater, and like mainly because you're able to go see a movie, especially right now, and keep your distance and be with people that you know.
Yep.
And not have to worry about anything.
If they plan this thing correctly, get the right technology, get the right venues to host these things, they'll make a lot of money.
You already have the venue. You already have the real estate. You tear down the actual building that the movie theater sat on.
Yes.
I mean, you guys mentioned Bluetooth. I think if they configure it the right way, because Bluetooth has come a long way since its inception, and whether it's through the dial, whether it's through a huge speaker in your car, or whether it's just through Bluetooth technology, there's a way that they can come up with that kind of technology. And maybe make it at a cost or something. Like, do you want a big speaker in your car? Pay this much. You want it to turn to a dial? You don't have to pay this much. If you want Bluetooth connectivity, it's going to cost you this much. There's a way they can actually do this and still come off with a pretty good amount of money from here. It's funny because before we did this, I was actually watching Film Theory, and he was talking about AMC versus Comcast, and he was talking about how. Is this the death of the movie theater? And while he doesn't necessarily agree, he did mention the fact about, drive-in movie theaters possibly becoming the new normal right now, as opposed to like regular movie theaters. I don't think regular movie theaters are going to die out at any point. They're not.
Not really. Not really.
And just FYI, just to backtrack a little bit, Tani, I don't know if you've ever been to Universal Studios, but Universal Studios Florida has a movie theater in their City Walk.
It's Universal, so I don't remember.
Yeah, Universal has a movie theater in City Walk, and guess what that movie theater is? It's the Cinemark.
Wow.
There we go. There we go.
Wow.
There it is. All right. There it is. Right there.
Wow.
So
I had to look that up real fast. I was like, wait a second. I'm like,
yeah. Which Universal City Walk is it?
Orlando.
In Orlando, yeah,
okay.
I remember it. I remember it.
I went to Universal City Walk in Cali, but no, I haven't been to Orlando since I was like 6 or 7.
That was when XXX was still out when I went down there. Yeah,
but the one in Universal Studios in Hollywood, I believe, is an AMC.
Okay.
So it's kind of funny that you have a name brand on their property, but you're acting this way.
Mm-hmm.
Towards a company that has your actual brand on there. They put your movie theater on their actual property. So for me, it's kind of like wishy-washy at this point. Because it kind of feels as though like a kid not getting its way and just kicking its feet.
I just think a lot of those movie theaters, especially AMC, I think they're just really on edge right now with everything that's going on. I think if they weren't so worried about possibly filing for bankruptcy, this probably wouldn't have been a big issue right now, but they stand to lose a lot of money. And
Rouge kind of said it. She said basically we live in an age where all the companies are going to end up filing for bankruptcy at least once,
right?
And recovering from that. I mean, a lot of them, it's just a matter if they're going to recover from the actual bankruptcy filing. And some will, some won't. I think a lot of the smaller theaters are going to hurt the most
Yeah.
A lot of these, lesser known theaters are going to hurt the most with this because they are basically, right now they're hurting in a world of these big name chains. So definitely I feel as though this is gonna have a really effect. So we're gonna show alliances between companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see what else I have here for you guys. So I got a quick question for you. Did you guys know that Comcast is starting a streaming service?
Comcast is starting a streaming service.
I didn't know that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Everybody is.
Yeah.
I had the beta version like right before Ken and I had our apartment where I lived before we had Comcast. And that's actually how I watched television. I didn't have a cable box.
Right.
I watched television, do the beta version of their streaming service.
So
it's been in development for a while.
Yeah. So the question is, do you think that's going to have an effect on what's happening right now?
With this exact situation right now, I would say yeah. If
How so?
If AMC is looking to ban, Comcast from is looking to ban Comcast movies from its movie theaters,
Right.
Comcast could still use Cineworld to release their movies and stuff. Some of the smaller movie theaters and all that, but with the success of Trolls World Tour just by video on demand alone, there's no way. Like, I guarantee you, they're probably sitting there right now. Like, I didn't think this was gonna happen. Now we got to go all in on our own streaming service. It's not like how it's not like how it is with Disney Plus, where Disney is just hinges on a lot of its old stuff, its back catalog. Like even now, like with the pandemic. There's no telling when all the new stuff is going to come out now. All the Marvel stuff, we don't know when that's going to come out now. A lot of that stuff was slated to come out, at least the first one was slated to come out this summer. We don't know if that's even going to be a thing anymore. They may all just come out next year.
A lot of movies got pushed to 2021.
Exactly.
A lot of them.
And that's the other thing, too. A lot of things got pushed back to next year and even 2022. But if Universal plays their cards right, if they have everything lined up the way I think they may have everything lined up, if I'm not mistaken, the latest Fast and Furious movie was supposed to come out like
this
real
year.
soon,
This year.
like
This year.
like this year.
Yeah.
That'll probably be a flagship premiere if they get their streaming service up. Like, get this and you get Fast and Furious 9, 10, 12. It's like 20
for a discount.
Like,
for a discount. And we're talking. I'm gonna set you right now. It's not gonna be free.
Nope.
It's gonna be for a discount.
It's gonna be for a discount. That's exactly what's gonna happen. You're gonna
A
release
discount for Comcast customers. It's gonna be a discount for Comcast customers, but it's gonna be $20. Which I think in a lot of this sense, I think that's what's gonna prompt people to stay home. Because if I can spend $20 at home and provide my own popcorn, provide real food, and we can sit in front of the TV and watch a movie.
And that was the main thing that Film
Exactly.
Theory, that's the main thing that the guy from Film Theory was saying. Like, this whole pandemic has helped, especially a lot of parents, to realize that, like, I've been spending a crap ton of money at the movie theater, and I don't have to. My kids are home.
They could put it out for $50, and I think people will still buy it because it's still cheaper than taking your family of 4 out to the theater.
Because you got to think the tickets themselves. Even if you go during, the morning session, you're talking about maybe a family of 4 spending about $80, roughly, on tickets. Let's lower that down. We'll say about $60 on tickets if they have young kids. And then you go to the concession stand, because with kids, you're not passing by that. I know there's people that can do it. I can do it, but I choose not to.
I could do it if we ate before the movie.
Yeah, even if I ate before the movie, there's certain things I have to have when I go to a theater.
Yeah.
And
it's on purpose the way they do things. I'm gonna let you know that right now. There's always fresh popcorn popping. There's always things of that nature. There's a reason why they do that. Because it just titillates your senses. So even if you don't want it, you're always gonna get small popcorn or a drink or a little candy or something because you feel as though you're obligated.
Popcorn. I don't even like popcorn. It gets stuck in my teeth all the time, and I have sensitive gums, and it hurts and all that. But even passing by,
I'm sorry.
I want popcorn.
Yeah, because it's like it's it's that thing about theater popcorn.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I don't understand it.
The only time I eat it, like people pop some popcorn at home, I don't want it.
But here's the thing: that popcorn costs you $10 for a small.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, and you can't have popcorn without a drink because you're not going to eat it dry.
Yeah.
Right.
And then your kid wants M&Ms, and then your other kid wants Sour Patches, and then they want their own drink, even though they're not going to finish it, and all that.
And then if you
spend $100 on your family of 4.
I always said, people, you should invest in a nice area in your living room and make that, and to try to make it as close to theater experience as you possibly can.
Well, I'm gonna tell you
right now.
We got a sound bar.
I'm gonna tell you.
I'm gonna tell you right now that the additives that go into that popcorn, you're not gonna find that outside the theater for the most part. I'm gonna let you know that right now.
But what I'm gonna tell you,
take fresh popcorn
in the popcorn.
You take fresh popcorn, you put it in a pot, you cook it with and Rouge will tell you, she's watching. Cook your popcorn with olive oil. It's good.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it still doesn't match up to theater.
Ain't that movie theater popcorn? No. But here's what's gonna start happening. Most people today are investing in
popcorn is probably Orville Redenbacher's.
Yeah. Actually, I will let you know. I'll let you know after the show.
But most of us understand that the home theater is almost like a must, especially if you're like a geek and a blerd. It's like a must. You have to have a decent TV, whether you have surround sound, a sound bar, or something like that. Whatever streaming services you got, whatever game system you got, there has to be a thing in your home.
Yes.
Soon, what's gonna end up happening is people who aren't like us, people who probably don't game like us or watch a buttload of movies like us. What's gonna end up happening is that like the home theater experience is gonna be a commodity. Is gonna be a commodity that everybody's gonna want to jump in on.
Or it's going to be people that are going to be lost on because there's a lot of people that can't spend that time in the house. They don't like spending that much time in the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially if you have kids, if you're a parent that has kids, and they like going out and they love just going to the movies, it's like, all right, this is cutting in the mortgage money. Like, y'all, we gotta make some kind of concession here. Video, like, and I said this the last time that especially with AMC, since I'm an AMC A-list, subscriber, you can actually rent movies from their services also. They just don't advertise it. And this would have been a perfect time for them to be advertising that. So
exactly.
And it would have been, and I said it was just too late because at that moment, a lot of people don't know. And a lot of people, I think, were weaning off of it, even like before this with the whole measles outbreak thing and the whole everything. And people were like getting a little bit scared of, the theaters and stuff like that. And I know a lot of big hits came out and people that brought people out,
Yeah.
But all it takes is for something, to come in. And that's, I think, the one thing that the movie theater industry did not expect is for one thing to come in. And that kind of blows everything up because they're just right in line with the restaurant businesses.
Yeah.
The only difference is that the restaurant businesses can probably open back up and people are going to be crowding through there because they're tired of eating the home cooking.
Yeah.
Especially if you can't cook.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. I mentioned to
You
Tommy,
have YouTube. There's no excuse for you not to know how to cook something. There's
Well,
YouTube.
but I
You
meant
put the phone there.
it's funny
put the
though because
ingredients, do it.
I mentioned to Tani a couple of weeks ago that since quarantine, a lot of restaurants who are still open and doing like drop off services, delivery, and all that stuff. I've noticed.
Curbside.
I've noticed that their food has tasted a lot better since quarantine. And I honestly feel like it's because they don't have a whole bunch of people sitting in their restaurants. They're not bombarded trying to get.
Yes.
They're not bombarded with a whole bunch of customers asking for this, asking for that. They're running back and forth. Nope, they just got time to cook, put it in containers, put it on the shelves for people to come pick it up so they can drop it off. I had some food from a diner a few weeks ago. That shit was popping. All right. So you're absolutely right. I think restaurants can definitely recover from this. They're still relatively doing pretty all right.
Why is it that theaters have seemed to not figured out how to pivot the way other industries have been?
Because why fix something that's if it isn't broken at that moment? It's basically right. They're not going to reinvent the wheel.
That isn't broken. People shopped in store. As soon as shutdown happens, started getting the emails about shopping online. Even restaurants, people dine in. People like dining in. That's a date night. That's an experience. But as soon as shutdown happened, they quickly shifted to curbside and delivery. And even the casinos, I have accounts with casinos because I'm a gambler. And as soon as they even thought a shutdown was going to happen, I got that email just to let you know you can still gamble online.
Yeah, but even then, but here's the thing.
They let you know.
But here's the thing. That's New Jersey. New Jersey, you're able to gamble online. Imagine Vegas.
Well, yeah.
Imagine a place like
I don't even want to talk about Vegas.
But I'm getting every situation is kind of different because, like I said, why reinvent the wheel? If it's working, why do that? It's the same thing with Blockbuster. Why reinvent myself? Or, why reinvent myself? And then when it's time to reinvent yourself, it's too late.
Exactly.
And that's I think what AMC's issue is that AMC was kind of working on that wheel for so long, and it's been working. It's been working well. That was a really well-greased, well-oiled wheel.
Yeah.
And now this kind of threw that wrench in there, and now everybody's like trying to, hustle to fix everything so they can get back moving. But you can't do it if you're closed. You can't do it if you don't own the properties that you actually are providing. And I think with the streaming services and things of that nature, I'm not sure, but I believe that there might be priority in that particular sense. Amazon, these companies might take priority over AMC and these, for these new videos and things of that nature. So they may not have the licensing to be doing that, but that's something that they should have worked on before this happened to kind of get that off the ground and say, hey, AMC, I rent movies too. So you know what? If you don't want to come into my theater, rent it from here. But again, like I said, they don't make money off the movies.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a lot of the problem.
It could have been an opportunity to do so. Because, in all honesty, even as an A-list member, I had no idea they had streaming. Like, I think Kendrick and I were just poking around our account one day, and I was just like, "Oh, you can stream movies."
Yeah, they don't make any. Like I said, the way the balance works is that they can have a license, like again, for 2 months for a movie to hold a movie for 2 months, but for that first 3 weeks, they only make 20%.
Right.
So you can stream that movie all day long. It's not going to give them any profit. They're not profiting off of it. What they're profiting on is the fact that you're putting money into their premium service.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that way they can actually profit off that premium service. That's what they're banking on. It's not necessarily the actual movie. And I think that's where they were going with that, is they were basically like, yeah, we don't know how to profit completely off of this because we still have to pay a percentage back to the company until that 4th week happens. And in that 4th week, we get 50%. But I mean, I don't know their percentages. I'm just throwing percentages out there. But, that's what kind of was happening with the movie theater industry, that they kind of only make a certain percentage out the money. Everything they're making is when you come through that door. When you walk through that door and you say, hey, I'm here, give me my seat and my food.
Yeah.
That's, especially that's why they open up the restaurant movies, that when you go in there, you're dining in, which I really hate that option, to be honest with you. I'm like, I really hate it. It's like,
the one closest to us is pretty bad, but the one, nice one just happens to be the one that's furthest away from us, from where we live.
Right.
I'm tempted to go to Fort Lee. and I'm not going to say what movie theater that is. I'm tempted to drive all the way to Fort Lee.
They're independent, right?
Yeah. I'm totally tempted to go up there and do that because definitely the dine-in options, I think, were the worst things. It was a good idea. It's good in practice. Yeah. But
oh God, it was sweet in the beginning, but then
I'll agree to that.
The novelty wears off.
They started getting disgusting.
Yeah, I'm like, you have to, with stuff like that, you have to upkeep it. You can't have, and I'm like, and I'm a big advocate for this. I do not like seeing companies where you walk in there and they want you to sit on ripped upholstery. They want you to sit on, this seat that looks like it's been covered in somebody's, body grease. I'm like, and they want me to lay in it, and I'm like, it's disgusting. No,
that's another thing. That's another thing. When the theaters do open up to hopefully into some kind of so-called normalcy, a lot of money is going to go into the cleaning.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it's already happened already because they had no choice.
Right. Regular sanitizing now these days.
It has to be, and it's expensive. And I'm going to tell you that right now, it's very expensive because your average theater, if you're just talking about a regular seated theater, you're talking about seating like, almost 200 people, sometimes, 300 depending on the theater. And those seats cost a lot to clean, and they only have to do it overnight. So that's the reason why it costs a lot, because they can't do it during the day.
Right.
Same thing with the screens. You don't realize how greasy and nasty the screens get from people just breathing in the actual atmosphere. Those have to get cleaned as well. Those are very expensive, extremely expensive to clean. So, I believe that in this day and age, AMC has a lot of bigger problems, a lot of, bigger things to worry about besides the fact that, Universal is going to be, opening movies on this day. And, I think that they need to focus on restructuring and probably maybe closing, because they own 1,000 theaters throughout globally. Thousands. So you're talking about maybe having to shut down a lot of those in order to make profit.
Yeah.
In order to turn around, and that's possibly what might have to happen. You might have to close down some of these, dine-in theaters. You might have to close down some of these theaters that are not doing so well. Some of the small, like the bigger cinemas, but the smallest theaters. You may have to start doing that and start looking at your money makers and going, okay, what can I do to restructure this?
Right.
A lot of these theaters that used to be, and I forgot the name of the company already. They took over their theaters. But, a lot of these theaters that are like Wayne, for instance, I hate the layout of Wayne. It's too big. It's too big. Funky, it's too awkward. It's things of the nature. That's what you should be looking at. Okay, you know what? Go into Wayne. Look at this. You know what? I can't deal with this. This is too much.
Right.
I'm like, it's gonna put people out of house and home. You can restructure people. You can move people, but I honestly think that they really need to start looking at their own company and seeing what they can do within their own company to rework this, because they're gonna hurt. Regal's gonna hurt.
Yeah, I was mistaken. AMC actually is the largest. Cinemark is Regal being second. Cinemark is third. Okay. But think about I still believe it's an opportunity for Cinemark to come up.
Because
Yeah.
They don't.
All the banks buy out larger ones and become larger.
Yeah.
And Cineworld's very silent right now.
Yeah.
Cinemark.
Yes.
Cinemark is very silent right now. They're not saying much. In this particular case, I mean, there's not much news on them right now as far as this is concerned. They may say something eventually, but I think with the property, with having a property on Universal's, in Universal Studios, I'd be on hush because literally I'm biting the hand that feeds me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I don't know what the business looks like. I don't know what their practice is. I don't know what Cinemark's doing in the background. If they have some like sneaky undercut, like hi-ya type of thing. They're gonna wake up and they're like,
probably.
This is what they're doing.
Now they're gonna be the largest.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they're doing right now. They're like, They're formulating something. We'll hear from them soon.
Just laying in the cut. Laying in the cut. That's how you're supposed to be.
There you go, man.
Just plot it out.
As they said in the Godzilla film, let them fight.
Right.
It's like, and that's exactly what's happening. It's like, and people are going to start. I'm a big fan of Universal. I'm a big fan. I work for Comcast, but I mean, personally, I would rather I want to see Universal thrive, and because I love their parks,
right?
And I've been to their parks more than once, and I mean, I enjoy it thoroughly, and I think that they have a vision, and I think a lot of other companies, Sony included, may start following suit. They may start putting out their movies directly to, I don't know if Disney may, because, they like a lot of this.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's a more profitable option for you to go, okay, I'm going to throw this out here. I'm gonna advertise the life out of this movie and then just throw it on the day it drops, throw it online, just like they do video games.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. It's like they watched the video game market and they were like, you know what? I saw how Final Fantasy worked. I like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like I saw how this worked. Didn't Final Fantasy come out the same day? When did Final Fantasy come out? 7.
Final Fantasy 7 Remake came out, what, 2? I want to say like 2 Fridays ago? Or 2 or 3 Fridays ago. That's when it came out. It came out on a Friday. Normally games...
It came out on April 10th.
Yeah.
What is with that day? What is with that? I'm like, what is with that day? I mean, it's a good day,
Yeah.
It's a good day. It's a good day. But both of them came out on April 10th. And both of them had a success story. They both dropped. It both happened. And it seems as though if any other company put out a movie that day and put it straight to VOD, they would have banked.
Yeah.
Entirely. Especially if it was a big title.
Yeah.
Especially if it was a big title. Now, granted, I might want to go see another big title. Like if they, put out another Star Wars movie, I might want to go see it on the big screen.
Oh yeah.
I might want to go see it there. I might, if they put out another installment on Batman, the Batman series, DC, maybe. It depends on who it is.
Right.
But yeah, Jason Momoa, I'll go see him. But,
Of course you will. Of course you will. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people think funny like that.
Aquaman all day.
Of course.
But but if it's all depending. I think a lot has to do with a lot of nostalgia fans. You're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna be gung ho. I need to go see this in the theater.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna have, I'll wait till it's on DVD. People.
We're like that now.
It was like I'll wait for it for DVD. Like Birds of Prey. Didn't I say I was not going to see that in theaters?
Like, well, yeah, we're like, and that's the other thing too. That's the other tie to this thing, because now it's like, you know, I mean, years ago when we were kids, it was always like, man, I'll just wait for it to come out on VHS or
Cable.
DVD,
Yes.
or wait for it to come out on TV. Wait for it to come out on cable. You know,
We wait for HBO to have it because I was already paying for cable.
right?
You know, and now that people don't have cable anymore like that, like I don't have cable anymore, which the funny thing is that Comcast has actually had an increase in cable sales since the pandemic. But they still have lost 40%.
Wow.
So it shows you where their money is coming from, and it's mostly from Universal. And, you know, it's mostly from the films, it's mostly from that. So, yeah, like, you know, I mean, maybe Rouge is right. You know, it might be the beginning of the end of the theaters. You know, it might be the beginning of the end. It might be, you know, people still have those people that may want to go see a big, you know, to do on the actual big screen. If it's especially like people that are into like series, like, you know, your Trekkies, you know, your Star Wars fans,
MCU stuff, all that, you know.
Yeah, you know, they're still gonna want to go see that. Now, whether or not they're going to be willing to pay, it may come down to just that. If I can get a bargain by watching it for $20 at my house, I may just have a home theater party.
Right.
Like back in the day, like we used to do pay-per-views. Like we used to do, one person ordered the pay-per-view, everybody came in and chipped in, you know, a little bit of money or some food, and everybody came in, and that's who watched the pay-per-view. You came and watched the fight, or you came and watched the movie. That was back in the day.
Yeah.
You know?
Have to think. I don't know. These companies have to think about what's going to happen long term.
Right.
They shouldn't make any decisions now. If a year from now we are still having the shelter in place and not go out as much and things like that, and if it's determined that this is just going to be life now because outside is just dangerous, then they should make some decisions about what they would do, whether AMC does start pushing their own streaming service and get exclusive rights, or if drive-in theaters come back.
Which I disagree with. I disagree with Rouge on that particular sense. She said that drive-in theaters may not be working in this time. I think drive-in theaters will actually work in this particular sense because you're in your own space. So you're in your own enclosed space. Now, I think what's going to happen, a lot of dates to movies are not going to be the same anymore. A lot of the dating scene is not going to be that same anymore because you really can't, you don't know who you're next to. You don't know if that person's sick or anything like that. So you're not going to be getting in somebody's car to go to a movie theater. I'm sorry. I'm like, that's a no-no.
Right.
But think about people already, like, you know, meeting up with their friends, you know, putting their cars in a circle and chilling out on the roofs of their cars, you know, just to hang out.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that at the theater and, like, you know, hop in the theater and you go get in a row, and you're basically distanced anyway because you're distanced by your car.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, you're all distanced, so you're basically sitting up there. You just, you know, a lot of them don't allow you to bring your own food. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll be a big industry. I mean, especially restaurants get involved with that. You get like a fast food chain or something like that to get involved with that.
Man, listen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
a whole wrap. It'd be a whole wrap.
It's time for people to start thinking. It's time for people to start putting things together and start thinking. I mean, take advantage. I mean, I hate to use the term "take advantage of the situation," but now, I mean, in situations like this is where innovation comes in. And so companies can come together and be able to really do something.
Yeah,
definitely. I'm putting a whole conference together about people who've shifted in their business. You know, and what were they doing before, and what are they doing now, in order to continue bringing revenue in. You know, so they can feed their families and their employees.
And I think that's a lot. And I think it's another part of AMC's work is that, you know, you have almost 25,000 employees that are pretty much without a job right now. I mean, granted, a lot of them are working minimum wage or, close to it. You have a lot of ushers and things of that nature. But, I mean, they could be teens. They could be, adults. I mean, I worked in the theater as an adult, and I mean, I tell you, the pay wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. But, I have a lot of people that were working there because it was fun to work. It is a fun place to work, the theater. And, get certain perks or things of that nature where some people you wouldn't think, like you'd be able to see the movie sometimes, 2-3 days before it actually releases.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So definitely, there are some things, but their employees are suffering as well.
Yes.
So, and I get that.
Are they not paying their employees right now?
Well, I don't know for sure if they're not paying, but I know right now if they're closed, I don't know how they are paying their employees.
Well, I'm only asking because I know a few companies who, even though they're closed, they are still paying their employees. I don't know if because they have other revenue streams or what.
Mm-hmm.
Probably why.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. I'm not going to quote it, but I think that might be the concern because how long can you sustain that?
Right.
Before that becomes a problem. You have to consider yourself. And I'm like, I'm not a CEO, but I mean, I want to keep as much money in my pocket as well, so that way I make sure I don't go under, along with the company. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely you wanna always concern yourself with your surroundings in that particular sense. So definitely. I think a lot of changes need to be made. That's bottom line. A lot of changes need to be made. A lot of things need to happen. A lot of people need to be considered. But I think, in a sense, down the line, it's not. I mean, I think it's going the way of vaudeville. It's going to go that route where it's just going to be. If this continues to go on, and other companies start following.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's like Surrogate without the surrogate. Remember the movie Surrogate with Bruce Willis?
Mm-hmm.
They had their.
What if we have to be surrogates in a few years?
Everybody stays in their house. They don't go out at all. Just.
Yeah, and it's like, and I mean,
I want to look like.
It's gonna be weird in a couple years or so. And then what happens when I'm not going to say when, I'm knock on wood wherever it is, but if and when another pandemic comes around or another issue comes around or another problem comes around, what are you going to do then? What is your recourse?
Yeah.
If these
earlier, they really have to really buckle down and really think and put things together.
And the same thing for the movie industry. Like, how are you going to get your actors? What are you going to do now that your actors can't be near each other?
Right.
Wow. Oh, jeez.
Chosen to still film. I was a part of a project, and up until like 2 days beforehand, the director was still trying to film. It was a couple of actors and some crew members who actually called him and said, "I don't feel comfortable coming." That ultimately made him shut down.
Which I agree with. I mean, and like literally, if like Bruce Willis, for instance, his wife. I mean, you're talking about Bruce Willis. What's his name? What's the one that just had COVID?
Idris.
Oh, Tom
Hanks.
Tom Hanks. Yes. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking of. Don't ask me why I was thinking of Bruce Willis. Tom Hanks and his wife. How they had it, and then like you said, Idris had it. Mm-hmm. So imagine. You going up there and you're acting and you're sitting up there, you're doing this work and you were working with that person. You know how to do a kissing scene with that person.
There you go. So long love scenes.
Not even kissing scene. Like, you meet everybody on set, you shake hi, I'm such and such. You shake everybody's hand. It's like.
Yeah, I'm like, literally, like, as an actor, I would be very uncomfortable being on set with somebody because I don't know, like legitimately, you're going to have to, like, test everybody who walks through the door every single day.
I love you. I love you, too. Can I get an elbow real quick?
Man, look, it's about to be.
Wakanda symbol.
It's gonna be the whole Wakanda salute from like now on. Like,
it's funny because we're talking about this because I mean I've already, you know, for when I do get back to that type of work, I've already have a plan on what I'm going to do. Like, you know, I have to take extra time to thoroughly sanitize. Not that I don't sanitize between people already, but you know, you're doing it pretty quickly. So, you know, thoroughly sanitize, face shields, gloves when I can use gloves. I can't always use gloves, but
right.
I'm sorry. I could totally hear people say, "So what you do on your date?" "No, we just elbowed." That's it. Ain't nothing. We just elbowed. Yeah, that's all we did. That's it.
And that's gonna. And you realize that's like the one thing. Like, I hate to say it, and like I find it to be like the worst date in the world. Honestly, like, oh yeah, let's go to a movie.
That's a bad first date. Yeah.
I find it to be the worst date ever, because like you're basically in a theater with surrounding noise. I mean, I want to talk to you, get to know you. I'm like, it's bad enough we're going to like a loud bar restaurant or a bar.
Yeah.
Interaction.
It's like you need that interaction. Like, to go to a movie on your first date, you're like, especially like I said, drive-in theater. You're looking at him like, don't touch me. No touchy. No touchy.
We gotta walk around with thermometers, or it's gonna eventually be an app on our phone where you scan people's foreheads and they say coronavirus or nah.
It's really about to be like what's that I Am Legend? It's about to be like that.
No, I don't think it's gonna get that far. I think it's gonna be more so. I think more so. There's gonna be a lot more. It's gonna be a stigmatism. It's gonna be more so the sick versus the not sick.
Yeah. So I Am Legend.
Yeah.
So I Am Legend. All right then. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even gonna be, because I Am Legend. The one thing about it is like they were like undead. Like, these people are not undead. No, they're just sick.
Like,
sick, and then, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of people pass away. But I mean, think about it. I mean, they're using plasma therapy as treatment. The cure was in his blood too, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But
never mind.
Holy crap!
Being white or being Hispanic, are you an allergy?
Oh yeah.
Like yeah. That was the question that Kendrick asked me when we got on earlier. He goes, I'm coughing. I went outside today. I'm coughing up a storm. I'm having the worst allergy season.
Mm-hmm. I told Kendrick, as soon as, like, every time we used to go out, it doesn't happen anymore. But every time I went out, I felt like, you know, a tickle in my throat. I'm like, see.
Mm-hmm. And now I can't cough in public, because you cough in public, it's like,
back away, God. You. Way back away, you.
Well, look here. Well, look what we got here, guys. We got ourselves a little allergy guy here. Let's string them up.
Wouldn't it be crazy if it ends up turning into that? I mean, like, it
eventually. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be the sick versus the not sick. It doesn't matter what you have. I mean, you can have a common cold, and it's going to be like, oh my God, you know,
grab him.
Like what's that scene? What's that scene in Monsters Inc. when he has the freaking sock on him?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, we're thinking about. I've been researching. I know we're getting off tangent here, going off course here, but I was researching countries that have not shut down and what their methods were. So in Sweden, they have not shut down, and they basically are not intentionally, but for lack of better words, intentionally exposing people to the virus so they can obtain herd immunity, which is ultimately what we would want anyway. But at the same time, I'm like, you're basically sacrificing your elderly and your sick.
Yeah. And even sometimes, in some cases, you're young, because your young could have a weaker immune system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot, but not to get on that topic entirely, but, you know, a lot of places aren't testing. So a lot of places, we don't know what their numbers look like. We don't know what their things are and what the issues that they're having right now, what they're facing. And so we're not getting a lot of data as far as that. But as far as the AMC though and Universal, we got numbers.
Yeah.
And we got numbers, and Universal's putting out numbers, and they're saying I'm going to recover that money I lost by closing my park.
Exactly.
And until y'all reopen my park, which is probably going to be a while because Disney's going to be shut for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they said they're not opening until possibly January.
Yeah.
I thought that we've been in a world where we don't have theme parks anymore, man. I mean, we're in a world where theme parks are shut down. Wow.
I've been so aware of how disgusting a lot of things just are. I'm thinking about theme parks and water parks and
yeah, I was just thinking about the water park. I'm like, imagine being in the water after somebody who was just like kind of swallowed and spit out the water.
Yeah, and I used to make fun of my mom when every time we went on vacation, she would disinfect everything before touching anything.
Yeah, I do that on cruises too.
Here I am.
And I was like,
I do that on cruises. I bring wipes on cruises and wipe down everything.
Essentially, the whole world, especially the United States, is going to have to reevaluate a lot of things when we come out of this. You know, we can't look and do the same thing, look at the same things and do it the same way we used to. You know,
we have to be cleaner. I mean, Asian countries sanitize the streets, not just clean them; they sanitize them.
I mean, me working at a school system, me just working around kids in general. You know, we all know that kids are like a hotbed for germs. They just carry it on. Like, and the crazy part is
they don't get sick.
Yes, they don't get sick. We do. We adults do. We catch all of it, like all in the face. So it's like
they sneeze in your face. They walk right up to you and they go, "Hi."
And then they be touching their noses, touching their ears, touching their buttholes, and it's like it's like what is going on here? But you know, we're gonna have to. There's gonna have to be an implementation of a lot of things, like a lot of businesses. Even if they were clean before, they're gonna have to be like cleaner now. Movie theaters are gonna have to
be a culture change within us.
Yeah, really.
We as a whole have to be cleaner.
And I have another question for you guys. It's gonna be a weird question. If they open up the theaters, let's say we open up the theaters in June, how do you think they're gonna implement social distancing in those theaters?
They gotta take
Lord, yeah, they're gonna have to take away the seats.
That's the only way it can work, really. They gotta.
But how do you get a family of 5 or a family of 6 so they want to sit together?
They'll probably have to implement something where it's like select. I mean, they got selective seating now, but it'll have to be like super selected. Like you can either get your individual seat, you can get your partner seat, you can get your family seat, or something like that. So they have to like
It's interesting because my mom, I probably got the email too. I just haven't checked it, but my mom got an email about when casinos open back up, you have to make a reservation to go to the casino.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because right now, those rows of slot machines are right next to each other.
Yeah.
And she asked, and she was saying, like, how are they, you got to make a reservation? I said, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying my theory. You make a reservation, they have a cap, and then they will take the amount of seats out based on how many people, I guess, register that day.
Yeah. But even then, that sucks.
For a theater, say a family of 5, says row A seats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Then maybe they will block out also 6 and 7 so that nobody's, next to those two, next to that family of 5.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this out here as well, because this happens a lot in theaters. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to hop theaters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that too.
They're probably going to be a little more vigilant about checking your ticket.
They're gonna have to crack down on that like a great deal. There's probably going to be someone has to stand at the door. Like, the door to each theater, somebody's going to have to, like, stand there to make sure, that person has their ticket. Like, it's almost going to be totalitarian, kind of.
But that's what I mean. It's impractical to do that. And I'm going to tell you from an actual theater worker's perspective, it's impractical to do that because of the fact that you cannot staff that many people without losing money.
That's true also.
Yeah.
So especially if your theater is
very,
very
true.
massive. So you have a 20, I'm not gonna say that. If you have a 20 screen theater, do you realize how many people you're gonna have to staff? You have to staff just 20 people to stand at the door, and you got to staff another couple of people to cover those people during their breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
I forget the name of the company, but a few years ago, I read about this executive of a company who dropped his own salary in an effort to allow his employees to get a higher salary and have the company as a whole still make a profit.
which is great.
Like if these stakeholders, I mean, they have these. It sucks when you have if your company's publicly traded because now you have stakeholders,
And which
But
is AMC, yeah.
But for a privately owned company, or even if you do have a publicly traded company, maybe they could find a way to work it out. If I don't know what the CEO of AMC makes, but let's just say he is worth like $1 billion. If he drops his own net worth to like 500 million, and now that money is dispersed other ways within the company.
His net worth is $10.9 million.
Okay, let's drop it to 5 million. Let's drop it to 5 billion.
But here's the problem. With AMC. AMC has a lot of. AMC has shareholders. And I believe it's a lot of Chinese shareholders, from what I understand. I'm not completely sure, but I know their biggest one is from a Chinese company. And so they're going to be looking for a lot out of that. So they're going to have to pay their shareholders first. So even if he drops his salary, that's still not going to be enough to cover the thousands.
I know. People are, I don't know. Warren Buffett doesn't even get a salary anymore. He gets paid by dividends. So that allows everyone else who works for Berkshire Hathaway to actually get a larger sale. I don't know if Berkshire Hathaway is publicly traded, but I know that with him only getting paid by his dividends from the company, it has to be publicly traded because he gets paid by dividends.
And the thing is that, like, I don't know how AMC is gonna recover, because legitimately, like, all the stuff we're talking about sounds good on paper.
Yeah, right. But once you implement it, you gotta think about logistics. However, I feel like a lot of things can be solved if the people at the top were willing to accept less.
Yeah, but I'm like, from looking at it, they have a lot of shareholders, and they have a lot of share. So I'm like, it's kind of sad, actually.
It's very sad. It's
very sad, and the people that are going to suffer are going to be the employees, and I'm like, that's people I feel the worst for, is the employees, because I've been there. I've been on that lower end. I've been on that spectrum. I'm like, that is my, that was my fun when I was there. Being with the people, enjoying the movies, and watching people enjoy their movies, and watch people get excited and revved up.
Yeah.
It's always good to see that, but in the end, they're gonna get hit the hardest. Like I said, a lot of these places are probably just gonna have to start closing up. They're gonna have to start closing up shop and starting to look at, liquidating a lot of their assets at this point in order to stay afloat. If you have a theater, for instance, I'm going to throw another theater out there, the one in New Brunswick on Route 1. I don't know if that's New Brunswick or North Brunswick. You're going to have a theater that's basically just out there, out of the blue, out of the wall, that's not really doing as much or not really doing as well. And you're going to probably have to take that out of circulation and kind of go, okay, you know what? I got to cut my losses. What do I do now? So they really have to start looking at what they can actually liquidate, what they can do, how many people they can keep, who they want to keep. They might have to start cutting, management and things of that nature, start cutting employees. It's going to happen. It's going to be a tough road ahead until they rebuild.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but I think a lot of their dine-in theaters are going to get hit the worst.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they took a lot to get those out. Alcohol licenses are not cheap.
Nope.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
And just to serve alcohol in a theater is really not worth it to me, because you have to have security, all that other stuff. Those are things. It's not worth it to me. If I go to a theater, I just want to enjoy the theater.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I go to dinner afterwards if I really want to. That's just my personal opinion. I know people that enjoy it. I know people that go to AMC just to go to the bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I know it exists, but would I ever do it again? No. I mean, I did it once. That particular one. I'm not saying which. I did that one once. I did not enjoy the experience. My seat was sticky. I actually had to sit most of the movie sitting up, because if I sat back, I stuck to the chair.
That's nasty.
And that's the thing. Like when all of this started, I said this virus is spread because the general public is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let you know, a lot of the employees are just as lazy. So and it's just because they don't have enough time. They don't have enough time. That they don't have the ability to thoroughly clean in between. They don't have the turnaround from movie to movie is probably less than 15 to 20 minutes, and they have to clean. In that particular theater, I believe it was like 15 screens or something like that. You have to clean 15 screens before, or 8 screens rather, I think it was, before you'd have to do the rotation all over again, and usually have a break in between them while the action movies are running. So the max I think you'll get is probably a 45-minute break. Right. A lot of times, but then you have other things. You have people in concessions. You have people, at the ticket booths. You have all that stuff. So everything's kind of always a rotational thing out there. It's always it's a moving part. So definitely except from a worker's point of view, I see it. But it's gonna really it's both. It's people are disgusting, workers are lazy. How many times have you gone into a theater? I mean, going to a theater and somebody's stuff was still sitting there.
All the time.
Yeah. It's sticky.
There just has to be a culture change, and I don't know how that we can get that to happen. Because even now, I mean, you see people tossing their masks and tossing their gloves on the street. So people are still being.
Yeah.
And but the way things go back to normal is, even especially with theaters, is that there has to be a culture change within us. We have to be cleaner. Wash your damn hands.
But the thing is do we really want it back to normal though? That's the thing. Do we want it back to normal, or do we want it to be better than what the normal was?
Always better than what it was. I mean, it can get that way. Like I said, it's one part society as a whole being cleaner, just having to be cleaner, practice better hygiene practice, teach others to be more hygienic, especially kids. Just do that. But
I've learned that if you teach kids, they will stick with it.
Like as far as businesses is concerned, a lot of them are just gonna have to make a lot of modifications and stuff. A lot of revenue that a lot of these places lost can definitely be made back again tenfold. They just gotta adapt to certain things. Like just even look at the supermarkets right now. Social distancing has caused supermarkets to form more structured lines on checkout. That's just something they made.
In all honesty, and when I used to be a supervisor at the store I used to work at, that's how I structured the line every time I worked.
That's probably something that supermarkets are just gonna have to just all supermarkets, department stores, wherever. That's just something that they're probably just gonna have to just keep implemented in their daily business routine, because not only does it streamlines, the flow of traffic, for checkout and stuff. No one's on top of each other. No one can complain about this being touched or that being touched or you bumping into me and all this other stuff. So,
I mean, another thing that Jersey is doing that a lot of other, I'm not sure a lot of states are doing this, is that they only are allowing a certain amount of people in the stores.
That too.
So that is also helping with that.
Yeah.
IKEA with it.
Yeah.
You force the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Like IKEA.
That just might have to be the way for a lot of stores. Because think about it, and let's think about events like what Black Friday, like things like
that's
that.
Not gonna. That's not gonna be a. Honestly, I don't think that's gonna be a thing this year. It's Black Friday. I'm not sure. I mean, it may, because it's still people that are like wild enough to go out in there and do that. But it's not. It's gonna be more structured now. It's gonna be more the case of, okay, we're allowing this many people in at this moment. We're allowing this many people in at this moment.
It's going to have to be, because...
And we're limiting things. So we're going only 2 per this person, only this many for this person, only this many for that. They're going to have to now continuously do this to show people what greed looks like.
Exactly.
Because that's exactly what's going on. But as far as the topic at hand, anybody else have any final words, anything, final sayings at all?
All I'm gonna say is, AMC. I know their back is essentially against the wall right now. That's kind of what it is for them. Their back is against the wall. But I'm just gonna basically say they really shouldn't be trying to bite the hand that's quote unquote feeding them. I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, everybody's going through some stuff right now, and everyone's, including Comcast, they're doing what they feel is going to help keep their pockets packed. That's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That's what everybody's doing.
And they're keeping their employees employed.
It's like we said before, AMC should have jumped on the bandwagon that a lot of people were doing beforehand. I mean, like you said, Kim, it's one of those situations where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, it's like, what if it does break?
Yeah.
Then what do you do? So,
and we're in a blockbuster situation at this point. So exactly. That's what I'm comparing it to, blockbusters. At this point, the AMC,
I like that.
The movie theater has become the blockbuster now, and now we have to see how they recoup.
Yeah, and that's all it is. Because as far as it's saying, streaming services and video on demand is essentially the next wave. That's all it is to it. It's the next wave right now. It's gonna. And hopefully, what I'm hoping will happen is it'll come to a point where you either have the option of going to see such and such in the theater, or if you don't want to deal with all that, you can just watch it at home. Mm-hmm. I would like to think that's where we're going to get to, but I don't really know for sure. That's all dependent on, if AMC can save themselves. We'll have to wait and see. That's all I can say.
Anything from you have?
AMC needs to really think long term if this is really the road they want to go down. Mm-hmm. Because they can wind up losing a lot more money than they have right now.
Yeah.
Than they have already. I mean, in terms of, streaming versus, being in the theater, people want options. Mm-hmm. People order from Target online, but they're still going into stores. Right. People order from Walmart online, but they're still packing the stores.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What is, just because a movie dropped video on demand does not mean that people won't stop going to theaters.
Exactly.
Right.
Definitely. Harold, anything else?
I'll have to just piggyback on what Kendrick and Katanni just said, that if they can just come to the table and talk. I understand that, people are desperate to make their money and that they have, families and employees and responsibilities and things like that. But there needs to be a communication. What can they do? What kind of innovation? Usually in times like this, you'd be surprised what type of innovations you can come up with,
right.
Ideas you can come up with, inventions you can come up with, where everybody can benefit somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Come to the table, Universal and AMC. Come to the table.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and I totally agree. Definitely they need to just come to the table and look at this and just basically say, you know what, this is what it is. Maybe look at the terms, look at that 90 days, say it's 90 days not plausible anymore, and maybe come to terms and say, you know what, you have 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever the case may be, before I put this in my video on demand services. So to that effect. But I do think that we need to have adult conversations. We can't just, stomp our feet and go, I don't want to, I'm not talking to you, and give you the silent treatment, which is basically what's going on. Not really silent treatment, but basically the back and forth, and I'm just going to block everything from you.
Yep.
Now's not the time to be that way.
Yeah,
it is not the time, especially for AMC. You got to think of your people. You got to think of who's working for you. You have to think that, there's going to be other companies that are going to follow suit, so you're going to have to get with the times.
Right.
And you have to kind of, take your foot, and, basically loosen that up from that floor, because you're going to have to now, that mountain's going to have to move.
Yeah.
Right.
But definitely, guys, this has been a really good conversation. Really good conversation.
Yes.
We should have people beside Kendrick run point more often.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So. No, absolutely.
Well, can we just quickly go through the chats, because the chat has been on fire.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, definitely. I remember Carrie had said at one point that she thinks if AMC folds, perhaps the rise of indie theaters. So she's thinking the opposite, that maybe that the independent theaters might actually thrive in this environment.
That's possible.
Which is the case. If they completely, fold under the pressure, they're absolutely right. We have no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
But it could go both ways. It could go, if AMC goes, how am I going to survive now?
Right.
Especially like smaller theaters, like the one in Montclair, like the Claremont and things of that nature, where those are very small theaters. And usually, I can understand like the independent films. They usually do a lot of that over there. But if you ever been inside those theaters, they're literally basically like closets.
Yeah.
So you're definitely going to be looking at, how are they going to, if they can't survive this and I can't stream and I can't do this, how am I going to be able to thrive in this? Or are they going to charge me more now to actually get their movie, because these big chains are no longer being able to actually, negotiate those contracts for me?
Right.
Who else was in here? Let's see. I know Rouge was doing a lot of talking today.
Yeah, she's a great support. She's a great support.
Yeah, she was in it to win it with her pretzel bites.
She loves pretzel bites.
Apparently, there's going to be some elbowing going on later.
Yeah, elbowing. Yeah, definitely for the birthday. For the birthday.
I was gonna put something in the chat, but then I was like, nah, but it would have been too much.
She said, remember the seating at an AMC on Xmas Eve showing the Star Wars, and oh, my reaction. What was her reaction? Harold. Was she not having it?
Yeah. No. Well, it was okay. The reaction that she had when we went to that particular AMC was priceless. She did not realize that the chairs were that comfortable. She leaned back in that chair and was like, oh, this is so good. Oh. No, it was a good day. It was a great day.
Okay. Because my worst fear is going into a theater, walking into a theater and seeing everyone. Every seat filled, every, I am, and then sitting next to
go.
Ugh.
Yeah.
One person has taken a shower in a week.
I actually rather pay more for the reserved seating now.
Yeah.
I usually do. And I usually wait to go see a movie because of the fact that the theater may not be as full.
Yeah.
So, or I'll go earlier in the morning when I know people aren't up.
Yeah.
To go
There
see
you go. There you go. Early films are gold because you don't have anybody kicking your seat. You don't have anybody saying anything. You practically have the theater to yourself. I'm big on seeing early shows.
That matinee times, yeah, them be working.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And somebody actually said Trolls World Tour was actually more entertaining than they thought it was going to be.
I'm not gonna lie. I was entertained by the first one. I watched it with my students. I was actually surprisingly entertained by the first one. That being said, I wouldn't go see the second one. Just because
I've never seen either. I have no interest in seeing that one.
When you work with kids, you just watch a whole bunch of stuff. So it's, you just see all the kid movies.
Imagine, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Imagine if Disney put out Frozen 2 the same way that they did this.
Ooh.
Wow.
Man, listen. All the movie theaters would have been big mad, like for real, like super mad. Like, listen, man, if that went down, we'd be hearing about it. We'd be hearing about it until like next year. Like that's how crazy it would be. We'd be hearing about it until next year. So
that would be a catastrophe.
And it's funny because I keep thinking back to this band, and it's like y'all do realize like the next Fast and Furious movie is like getting ready to come out. Like, y'all sure y'all want to do this?
Yeah,
y'all sure y'all want to do this right now?
You really? Especially with the whole 3D thing. That's the one thing they're always going to have a one-up. 3D IMAX. Yeah. You're always going to have a one-up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
3D TVs didn't make it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're always going to have a one-up. So I would think that they really need to sit down and have that conversation. Yeah. But like I said, you guys, this has been a really good conversation. This has been really, really, really good. And, thank the people that came in to come watch. You guys are awesome. And for the people that are going to come later and watch.
Right. As well as listen also, because remember, these do go up on podcast streaming services, so you can definitely give us a listen if you haven't had a chance to watch, but you'll always have a chance to watch because it is right here on the YouTube channel, so it's always going to be here. So you have no excuse.
If you want to participate live, and if you have a question to ask, join us live.
Definitely.
Or you can go on our Discord and hang out on our Discord. If you've come upon this channel, a couple of days after we've been here, after this goes up, definitely go to the Discord. We'll be more than happy to continue the conversation there with you guys.
Sure.
Or on our Facebook page as well. We're definitely more than willing to have this conversation again, and and go over your what your thoughts are. We're definitely willing to hear everything.
Yeah. So all that being said, today was a very excellent show. I want to thank Kim for taking point today, and Tani is right. I don't always have to be the point man, so there's that. So we'll be back again next week. Like I said, we've been pretty consistent. This is the most we've been consistent since we started this thing. So we've been pretty good. So we'll be back next week. And next week, we've already discussed, we're definitely going to be talking about the video games we've been looking into playing and looking to play during this pandemic.
And what the industry is what's going on with the industry right now as far as they're concerned as well.
Yeah,
what's happening with them.
And despite not having a console, I actually played some games. Independent games that you guys might want.
So there we go. So that's what's going to happen next week. So we're going to share what we've been playing. We're going to throw some suggestions out, and if you guys have suggestions on some games that we should be looking into, always let us know. In the chat, Discord, Facebook page, YouTube channel, is all here.
Mm-hmm.
All that being said,
in the comments below, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All that being said, I want to thank all you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you next week. As always, The council
has spoken.
There you go.
We will catch. Okay, we did it better this week.
We almost said it at the same time. We almost.
It was almost good.
One day we're gonna get it again, and we are so out of practice. You know this, right? It's been a whole year since we've done it. We
might have to rehearse it. I'm not sure. We might have to rehearse it, but we'll have to.
We're gonna have to. Choir rehearsal is next week, Tuesday at 2:00 in the afternoon. Okay.
So.
No. Oh, bump that. Here we go. 1, 2. The council has spoken. Okay.
All right.
He sounded so literate.
All right. We'll catch you guys next week. All right. You guys have a good night, guys.
All right.